The name Stonehenge is thought to come from the Old English or Saxon word Stanhengen, which means stone hanging, because it kind of resembles what gallows looked like in the Middle Ages. You had two uprights with a crossbeam.
Stonehenge, a pile of rocks in a field, right? Wrong. For centuries, we've stared at these 20-ton giants and asked, how? How did they move them? How did they stand them up? But we forgot to ask why. Why drag massive slabs from 400 miles away just to make a circle? Well, modern technology just cracked the code. A team of scientists used laser scans and advanced modeling to reveal a hidden pattern in the stones that has nothing to do with the sun. It's not about what you see, it's about what you hear.
We now know that Stonehenge was part of a much larger superstructure.
And this discovery proves the circle wasn't made for us. It was made to keep us out. Voices from the center. You might think you know Stonehenge. It's the background for a million postcards and the subject of endless boring history lectures. But wipe all that away for a second. Forget the druids and the solstices. The real shocker was found in a lab, not a field. A team of acoustic engineers from the University of Salford decided to do something different. They didn't want to just look at the stones. They wanted to listen to them. But you can't exactly blast techno music in the middle of a protected heritage site to test the acoustics. So they built Mini-Henge. This wasn't a toy. It was a 1:12 scale model, 3D printed with extreme precision based on laser scans of the real site. They recreated every crack, every curve, and every missing stone to rebuild the monument exactly as it stood 5,000 years ago. They placed this model in a specialist acoustic chamber, a room designed to absorb all sound reflections, and blasted it with ultrasonic frequencies. What they found was mind-blowing. The stones weren't just standing there, they were working. The layout of the massive sarsens created an acoustic environment that shouldn't exist in the Neolithic world. Inside the circle, the stones amplified speech by over 4 decibels. That might not sound like a lot, but in the world of sound, it's huge. It's the difference between straining to hear someone and hearing them crystal clear. But here is the catch. This amplification only happened for people inside the circle. The stones acted like a shield. They trapped sound waves, bouncing them back and forth in the center, creating a sound bubble. If you were standing inside the ring, a priest or leader speaking at a normal volume would sound booming, authoritative, almost godlike. The reverberation time, the time it takes for sound to fade, was extended, making chants and drums sound hypnotic and powerful. But if you were standing just a few feet outside the circle, the sound fell silent. The stones blocked the transmission of voice to the outside world. Think about what that means for the people of that time.
You hear quite a subtle echo, but if you're listening, it is clearly there. So you also hear a sense of reverberation, so it's a bit like a gigantic bathroom.
We always picture huge crowds gathering at Stonehenge for festivals. And sure, the archaeology shows signs of feasting nearby. But during the actual ceremonies, the experience was segregated. The elite, the priests, the chosen ones, stood inside the circle, enveloped in a swirling, amplified soundscape that must have felt like magic. The common people stood outside, watching the rituals through the gaps in the stones, seeing the movement, but hearing nothing but a muffled murmur. It was a theater of exclusion. The architecture was designed to create a barrier between the participants and the observers. The hidden pattern wasn't just physical, it was social. It was a way to manufacture mystery and authority. The people outside couldn't hear the words of power, so they had to trust the people inside. This changes the entire narrative. Stonehenge wasn't a public park. It was a closed boardroom for the Neolithic elite, designed to intimidate and control. And to pull this off, they didn't just use any old rocks. They went on an impossible journey to find the perfect components for their machine. But wait until you see where they actually dragged these stones from. A nation united by stone. So, we know the stones worked as a sound system, but would you walk 500 miles just to get better speakers? Apparently these guys would. One of the biggest questions has always been, where did the stones come from? For a long time, people thought glaciers just pushed them there. It makes sense, right? Nature does the heavy lifting, and humans just stack them up. It's a neat, tidy theory, but science hates neat and tidy. Researchers took a closer look at a small, lumpy rock found at the site called the Newall Boulder. It had been sitting in a museum storage box for decades, gathering dust. But when geologists finally analyzed its chemical fingerprint, looking at elements like thorium and zirconium, it matched perfectly with a rock outcrop in Wales called Craig Rosy Phelan. And this wasn't just a match. The site in Wales showed signs of quarrying. There were wedge marks where stones had been pried loose, and platforms built to drag them away. This wasn't glacial ice moving rocks by accident. This was a targeted heist. We are talking about the blue stones, the smaller stones in the inner circle. They came from the Preseli Hills in Wales, over 140 miles away. But the story gets crazier. Recent analysis of the altar stone, that massive slab lying flat in the center of the circle, blew everyone's minds. For 100 years, we thought it also came from Wales, but the chemical signature didn't fit. It was too distinct. So, the scientists widened their search. They looked at rocks from all over the UK, and they found a match. The altar stone came from the Orcadian Basin in northeast Scotland. Let that sink in. Scotland. That is 470 miles away from Stonehenge. Imagine dragging a 6-ton slab of rock across the entire length of Britain without a truck, a horse, or a wheel. You have to cross rivers, swamps, forests, and mountains. Why? Why do it? There are plenty of big rocks closer to Salisbury Plain. The answer brings us back to the purpose. These stones weren't just construction materials. They were sacred objects. The act of moving them was the point. It was a pilgrimage. It brought communities together from across the island. Pulling the ropes wasn't just labor, it was a ritual.
All these ancient blocks were moved with wooden rollers is very interesting. However, do you know what happens to wood? When you put 20 tons on a wooden roller, it'll just get crushed to smithereens.
And then there are the sarsens, the iconic giant uprights with the lintels on top. They weigh 20 tons each. You can't exactly put those in a backpack. A lucky break came when a man named Robert Phillips, who worked on repairs at Stonehenge in the 50s, returned a core sample he had kept as a souvenir. Using this core, scientists traced the sarsens to West Woods, about 15 miles away. Close, right? But here is the catch. They didn't pick the stones from the closest edge of the woods. They went deep into the site to find the biggest, most uniform blocks. They ignored the easy options to get the perfect acoustic and structural fit. They wanted stones that were hard, dense, and uniform. Stones that would ring when struck. Yes, some of the blue stones actually ring like bells. And stones that would reflect sound perfectly to create that inner sanctum we talked about. This level of dedication is terrifying. It implies a central authority with enough power to command labor for decades. You don't get thousands of people to drag rocks from Scotland just for fun. You do it because you believe in the mission, or because you are afraid of the people in charge. The sheer logistical nightmare of the transport proves that the final arrangement was non-negotiable. Every stone had to be in the exact right spot. And when you look at how they arranged them, you realize it wasn't just about sound. It was about time itself. And this brings us to the code that had been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years. Alignment of the gods. Okay, so they have the perfect sound system. They have the sacred stones from the ends of the earth. Now, what do they do with them? They build a giant clock. But this isn't a clock for telling hours. It's a clock for survival. We've known for a long time that Stonehenge aligns with the sun. If you stand in the center on the summer solstice, the sun rises right over the heel stone. It's beautiful. But new research by Professor Timothy Darville suggests it is way more technical than just a sunrise framing device. Darville argues that Stonehenge is a perpetual solar calendar, and the math is startlingly accurate. Look at the Sarsen circle, the big outer ring. There were originally 30 upright stones. 30. That's the number of days in a standard Neolithic month. Now, look at the layout. The circle is designed to count a year of 365 and a quarter days. How? The 30 uprights represent the days of the month. Multiply that by 12 months and you get 360. But a year is 365 days. Where are the other 5? Right in the middle, the trilithon horseshoe. Those 5 giant sets of stones in the center correspond to the 5 epigomenal days. These are the extra days added to the end of the year to sync up with the sun. The ancient Egyptians did the exact same thing. But what about the quarter day? You know, the reason we have a leap year every 4 years? Stonehenge handled that too. The 4 station stones formed a rectangle around the circle. These could have been used to track the cycle and add that extra day when needed. This is genius-level engineering. These people didn't have writing, they didn't have paper, but they built a computer out of rock that kept perfect time for centuries. Why did they need this precision? Because if you are a farmer in 2500 BC, timing is everything. Plant your crops 2 weeks too early, the frost destroys them. Plant them too late, you go hungry in winter. Controlling the calendar meant controlling survival. The people inside the circle, the ones enjoying the amplified acoustics, were the keepers of this time. They were the ones who told the farmers when to plant and when to harvest. They held the knowledge. The hidden pattern of the calendar reinforced their power. Imagine the scene. It's the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. People are terrified the sun won't come back. They gather outside the circle. Inside, the priests chant, their voices booming thanks to the acoustic amplification. The sun sets perfectly between the tallest stones, marking the passing of the old year. Then, the priests announce the return of the light. To the commoner outside, this would look like the priests were controlling the sun itself. The architecture, the acoustics, the alignment, it was all a massive special effect designed to solidify the social hierarchy. But even with all this science, there is still a layer of mystery we can't strip away. Because before we had lasers and acoustic models, we had stories. And sometimes, the stories tell us things the rocks can't. And one name keeps coming up, a name that blurs the line between history and magic. The healing stones. Let's be real. When you look at 20-ton stones standing in a field, your first thought isn't crane, it's magic. And for most of history, that was the official explanation. Enter Merlin. Yes, that Merlin. The wizard with the pointy hat and the dragon obsession. According to medieval legends, specifically from a guy named Geoffrey of Monmouth in the 12th century, Stonehenge was built by giants. He called it the Giant's Dance. The story goes that the stones were originally in Africa, then giants brought them to Ireland. King Aurelius Ambrosius wanted a memorial for British nobles fallen to Saxons. He asked Merlin for help. Merlin said, "Hey, there are these magical stones in Ireland, let's go get them." So they sent an army. The army defeated the Irish but couldn't move the stones. They were too heavy. Then Merlin stepped up, used his magic arts, or maybe just really good engineering that looked like magic to medieval peasants, and floated the stones onto ships and brought them to Salisbury Plain. It sounds like a fairy tale, but look closer. The legend says the stones came from the west, across the sea. The geology says the stones came from Wales, the west, and Scotland. The legend says they were healing stones. Archaeologists have found more burials at Stonehenge than almost any other site, and many of the bodies show signs of trauma or disease. People were coming there to be healed. The myth of the Giant's Dance might actually be a distorted memory of the real feat. The giants were the ancestors who did the impossible work of moving the stones. Merlin represents the clever engineers who figured out the leverage and the sledges. It is fascinating how the story morphed. The medieval mind couldn't accept that humans could move such things, so they invented a wizard. Today we use aliens to explain the same thing. We underestimate our ancestors. The reality is actually more impressive than the magic. Merlin didn't snap his fingers. Thousands of people worked together for generations. They greased wooden sledges with animal fat. They built trackways. They floated stones on rafts. It was a triumph of human cooperation. But this brings us back to the darker side of the site. This cooperation wasn't necessarily voluntary. You don't build a monument that excludes 99% of the population from the inner circle unless you have a strict hierarchy. The myth paints a picture of a king honoring the fallen. The reality paints a picture of a stratified society flexing its muscles. The acoustic properties, the solar alignments, the exotic stones, they were all tools of the trade for the ruling class. And sadly, humans being humans, we almost destroyed it. For centuries, visitors chipped off pieces of the stones as souvenirs. They rented hammers from the nearby town of Amesbury to smash off chunks. Can you imagine? Here's a hammer. Go break a piece of history. It wasn't until 1918 when a man named Cecil Chubb, who bought the site at an auction, basically on a whim because his wife wanted curtains, not a stone circle, gave it to the nation. If he hadn't, we might not have anything left to scan today. So, what does all this leave us with? The enduring silence. So, here is the deal. Stonehenge isn't just a pile of rocks. It is a masterpiece of prehistoric engineering. It's a calendar, a cathedral, and a concert hall all rolled into one. The hidden pattern revealed by AI and acoustic modeling tells us something profound about human nature. We crave connection, but we also create division. The builders of Stonehenge used the most advanced technology they had: acoustics, geology, astronomy, to create an experience that united the land but separated the people. The stones from Scotland and Wales tied the island together. The solar alignment tied the earth to the sky. But the sound bubble, that drew a line in the sand. Us inside, and you outside. It forces us to look at ancient history differently. These weren't simple primitives grunting in the mud. They were sophisticated, political, and possibly a little bit manipulative. They built a stage for the gods and kept the best seats for themselves. So, knowing that Stonehenge was basically a prehistoric VIP club designed to trick people with sound effects, does it make the monument more impressive to you or less spiritual? Are we just looking at the world's first special effects budget? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you want more secrets dug up from history, smash that like button and subscribe. Catch you in the next one.